Danny Rodriguez had exactly 47 minutes between the bridge collapse and the arrival of heavy rescue equipment. In that time, he organized the evacuation of 28 trapped motorists, directed emergency responders to the most critical victims, and prevented a disaster from becoming a catastrophe. Fire Captain Wilson later said he'd never seen a civilian handle a crisis with such precision, until he learned Danny wasn't just any civilian. The Madison Bridge had carried traffic across the Clearwater River for 43 years without incident. At 9:47 a.m. on Tuesday morning, that perfect safety record ended in less than 30 seconds. Danny Rodriguez was part of the city maintenance crew scheduled to inspect expansion joints on the bridge's east side. At 42, Danny had worked construction and infrastructure maintenance for Rivera Construction Company since moving to Madison 3 years ago. His co-workers knew him as reliable, quiet, and skilled with both heavy equipment and detailed technical work. What they didn't know was that Danny could analyze structural failures and organize emergency responses with the precision of someone who had been trained to build and destroy bridges in combat zones. The collapse began with a grinding sound that made every worker on the bridge look up from their tasks. Danny was calibrating measurement equipment when he heard the distinctive noise of steel giving way under stress, a sound he recognized from Iraq, where bridges were strategic targets and structural integrity was often a matter of life and death. "Everyone off the bridge. Now," Danny shouted, dropping his tools and running toward the work vehicles. But it was too late for the civilian traffic caught in the morning commute. As the central span buckled and collapsed into the Clearwater River, 15 cars and trucks were trapped on the remaining sections, some dangling precariously over the water 40 feet below. The scene that followed would have overwhelmed most people. Cars tilted at dangerous angles, drivers screaming for help, fuel leaking from damaged vehicles, and the very real possibility that more of the bridge structure could fail at any moment. Danny Rodriguez looked at the chaos and saw something different, a tactical situation requiring immediate assessment, resource allocation, and systematic response. "Mike," he called to his crew supervisor. "Radio dispatch. Tell them we need fire rescue, EMTs, and heavy lift equipment. Tell them we have vehicles over water and potential structural failure." While Mike made the emergency calls, Danny was already moving. He'd spent less than 2 minutes evaluating the scene, but his analysis was comprehensive. 3 cars were in immediate danger of falling, 8 vehicles contained injured passengers, and the remaining cars could be evacuated safely if approached correctly. Maria Santos, a third-grade teacher trapped in her Honda Civic near the edge of the collapsed section, watched in amazement as the construction worker began organizing what looked like a military operation. Danny approached each trapped vehicle systematically, speaking calmly to the occupants. Danny's approach to each rescue was methodical and confident. He used construction equipment to stabilize vehicles before attempting evacuations, directed other workers to create safe zones for rescued passengers, and prioritized the most critical cases based on injury severity and structural danger. How does he know how to do this? Maria whispered to herself as she watched Danny coordinate the rescue of a family whose SUV was hanging over the river. His movements were precise, his commands clear, and his assessment of each situation seemed to account for factors that wouldn't occur to most people. Captain Jake Wilson arrived with the first fire truck 12 minutes after the collapse. He expected to find chaos and confusion that would require time to organize into an effective response. Instead, he found a construction worker who had already established a command structure, triaged the victims, and secured the most dangerous situations. "Sir, I'm Captain Wilson with Madison Fire Department," Jake said, approaching Danny. "What's the situation?" Danny's briefing was concise and thorough. 28 people trapped in 15 vehicles. 3 cars are structurally unstable and need immediate attention. 5 injuries ranging from minor to serious, but no fatalities. I've used construction equipment to stabilize vehicles 1 through 3, and I've established safe zones for evacuated passengers in areas marked with orange cones. Captain Wilson stared at Danny for a moment. "Sir, over the next 35 minutes, Danny worked alongside professional emergency responders with a level of expertise that impressed everyone on scene. He seemed to understand structural engineering, emergency medicine, and crisis management with equal competence. "Danny, how do you know how to calculate load bearing for the rescue equipment?" asked Tom Phillips, a firefighter who was working with Danny to stabilize a dangling sedan. "You pick things up," Danny replied, focusing on adjusting the support cables. "Angles and weight distribution are pretty much the same whether you're building something or taking it apart." By the time heavy rescue equipment arrived, all 28 trapped motorists had been evacuated safely. 3 people were hospitalized with non-life-threatening injuries, but what could have been a catastrophic disaster had been managed with remarkable efficiency. Lisa Chun, a reporter for Channel 7 News, interviewed witnesses and emergency responders about the rescue operation. The consistent theme in every conversation was amazement at how well-organized and effective the response had been, particularly given that much of it had been coordinated by a construction worker. "I've been a paramedic for 15 years, said EMT Sarah Rodriguez, no relation to Danny, "and I've never seen a civilian handle a crisis like that. He knew exactly what to do, when to do it, and how to keep everyone calm while doing it." Lisa decided to research Danny Rodriguez for a follow-up story about local heroes. What she found in public records didn't match the quiet construction worker she'd interviewed. Agent Daniel Rodriguez had served 3 combat tours in Iraq as a combat engineer with the Army Corps of Engineers. His military specialty had been bridge construction, demolition, and infrastructure repair in hostile environments. His service record included the Bronze Star Medal for actions during a bridge operation that had come under enemy fire. "Danny Rodriguez isn't just any construction worker," Lisa told her news director. "He's a decorated combat engineer who specialized in exactly the kind of emergency that happened today." The follow-up story aired 3 days later, revealing Danny's military background and explaining why he had been so effective during the bridge collapse. The response from the community was immediate and overwhelming. Captain Wilson called Danny personally. "Danny, I need to apologize. When I saw how you handled that emergency, I should have realized you had professional training. Your actions saved lives that day." Danny's response was characteristically humble. "Captain, you and your team did the real work. I just helped organize things until the professionals arrived." But the emergency responders who had worked with Danny during the crisis had a different perspective. His knowledge of structural engineering, his ability to assess and prioritize multiple emergencies simultaneously, and his calm leadership under pressure had been essential to the successful rescue operation. Maria Santos, the teacher who had been trapped in her car, wrote a letter to the local newspaper describing Danny's role in her rescue. "When I was trapped and terrified," the letter was published along with similar testimonials from other people Danny had helped rescue. The picture that emerged was of a man who had used specialized military training to save lives, but who preferred to remain anonymous and let others receive credit for the successful operation. Danny's employer, Rivera Construction, promoted him to safety coordinator and project supervisor, recognizing that his expertise in structural engineering and emergency response could benefit the entire company. Other construction firms in the area began consulting with Danny on complex projects involving bridge work and infrastructure repair. But perhaps the most significant outcome was Danny's decision to volunteer with the Madison Emergency Response Team. Captain Wilson had been impressed enough with Danny's performance to recommend him for the volunteer program that assisted with disasters and large-scale emergencies. Danny brings a level of expertise that most volunteer programs never have access to, Captain Wilson explained during Danny's orientation. "Combat engineers are trained to solve problems under pressure, work with limited resources, and adapt to rapidly changing situations. Those skills translate directly to emergency response." 6 months after the bridge collapse, Danny was called to assist with a tornado emergency that had damaged infrastructure throughout the county. His ability to assess structural damage and coordinate repair priorities helped restore essential services in half the time usually required for similar disasters. "What I learned in the military wasn't just about building bridges in Iraq," Danny mentioned, but he declined to speak publicly about his actions. "The real heroes were the EMTs, firefighters, and police officers who put their lives on the line. Danny told the assembled crowd. "I just helped coordinate until they could take over." Captain Wilson had the final word about Danny's contribution. In emergency response, we talk about the golden hour, the critical time period when quick action can save lives. During the Madison Bridge collapse, Danny Rodriguez gave us that golden hour. His military training and leadership turned a potential catastrophe into a successful rescue operation. The bridge collapse taught the community of Madison something important about the veterans living and working among them. Skills developed in military service don't disappear when soldiers return to civilian life. They're applied to new challenges and used to serve communities in ways that aren't always visible until crisis strikes. Danny Rodriguez continued working construction, volunteering with emergency services, and living the quiet life he'd chosen after leaving the military. But his actions during the bridge collapse served as a reminder that heroes often work regular jobs, live ordinary lives, and only reveal their extraordinary capabilities when circumstances demand it. Because that's what Danny learned during his years as a combat engineer, and what he demonstrated during 47 critical minutes